There's a little relief today at the gas station, but not much. On average, it'll cost you about $3.84 a gallon to fill up your tank. Prices are cheaper than last week, but still $1 more per gallon than this time last year. U.S. oil production's at record highs, and the global supply is keeping up with demand. So why are Americans being forced to decide between filling up the tank and putting food on the table? In fact, 2/3 of Americans say the pain at the pump is causing them financial hardship. Some analysts are blaming market speculation, with special attention focused on the business practices of one oil conglomerate who many say is unfairly manipulating the market. Our specialist today, Lee Fang, is a researcher for thinkprogress.org at the Center for American Progress Action Fund. He wrote the article, The Contango Game, How Koch Industries Manipulates the Oil Market for Profit. Welcome to you, Lee Fang. I should note I'm a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress with part of my time. So tell us, Lee, how does this work? What's your argument? How is Koch Industries managing to bring Americans higher gas prices?
Well, you know, in the past year or two, the public has become familiar with Koch Industries, this massive conglomerate that people kind of know that they specialize in oil refinery and timber, and that their owners, Charles and David Koch, are big financiers of the far-right Republicans in Congress and the Tea Party. But what people don't understand, and what Koch Industries doesn't want the public to know, is that they're also a largely Wall Street company. They're one of the top 5 oil speculators in the world, according to documents that we unearthed and published at thinkprogress.org. And they're massively engaged in oil speculation. They've, in fact, pioneered a lot of the different speculative strategies that are boosting prices and causing pain at the pump.
Now, I want to get our mega panel's got some questions, but I do want to acknowledge we did get a statement from Koch Industries which said Koch Industries does not control the price of oil. These allegations reflect a fundamental lack of understanding about how markets operate, and they have been widely debunked. So, Tim Carney, I guess Koch doesn't think much of Lee Fang's argument. I think you're a little suspicious of it as well.
I am too, and I think we have to start out with a lot of disclosure here. You have your Center for American Progress relationship, as does Lee, and Center for American Progress is funded by primarily $3 million to start by George Soros, who was praised in his own book by Paul Volcker as one of the world's greatest speculators, and who was criticized by Paul Krugman as actually being a speculator who, unlike most, actually causes the crises that cause these speculators to get rich. And I have, and I need to say, probably about $5,000 in speech fees from Koch Foundation.
So we're all bought and paid for by speculators.
We're all bought and paid for by speculators. And the difference between me and Lee is that I deal in facts, and somebody like Lee deals in a misunderstanding. Look at the words. Can I talk over Lee?
I want to give you a chance to respond, Lee.
Okay, so Lee, I've got my question here. You called contango. You used that word. You said this was an investment strategy, but that's not what it is. Look it up. An economist.
It's a market situation that
it's a market situation where the spot price is lower than the future price. So in other words, back in 2008, this article you cited in Fortune, because I read the blog post, I read the Fortune article, spot prices at that point were low, $50 a barrel, and Koch was buying up a lot of oil at the time that it was cheap, understanding that it would go up in the future.
Artificial scarcity.
And then Koch would refine that oil and sell it as gasoline in the future. So buying low and selling high is a conspiracy in your mind?
Let's let Lee respond.
No, and, you know, again, for disclosure, I want to regulate George Soros' hedge fund. I'm not helping him out in any way. And Tim Carney is, again, funded by the Koch brothers and another big oil speculator, Phil Anschutz.
Let's address the merits.
I get more money from GE than I do from
Let's address the merits of the argument.
No, the argument. He's not arguing on the merits. He's going to ad hominem attack. That is his style.
Understood.
Look, here's the merit of the argument. Fortune magazine, they said that because Koch Industries was using its massive market presence to buy up oil and to store it both on land, they leased about half a dozen super tankers to store oil off the shore to create artificial scarcity. And what Fortune magazine said is that increased the price at the pump by almost 40 cents a gallon.
At a time
that
when
hurts
oil was
consumers.
$50 a barrel.
Right, so it still hurt consumers. And this is just one of the many strategies Koch Industries uses. In 1986, Koch Industries completed the very first oil swap. An oil swap is a form of an oil derivative that bets on the future price of oil. So whether it's manipulating the physical assets of oil or manipulating and selling synthetic derivatives, Koch has a wide array of oil speculation strategies. And I think experts across the board agree that this type of speculation is is hurting consumers and boosting the price of oil.
And yet I want to get Christopher Freeland, and it could be with a question, but also there are people who would also say there are some forms of this activity that are useful hedging devices for people involved with oil in their business.
Okay, so that was going to be my form of disclosure. Was going to be I am related to an avid futures trader, my dad, who is a farmer in northern Alberta, and farming actually was the source of the original futures market. It was Japanese rice farmers. The reason futures markets exist is because the agricultural cycle has its ups and its downs, and farmers needed to be able to move their risk across the seasons. So they're actually, we need futures markets. If you had a law that banned futures markets tomorrow, it would not help consumers. It would actually make prices much more volatile than they are and make investment much, much harder. My question, though, on this particular oil price issue is, from a progressive point of view, isn't it actually kind of a good thing that oil speculators pushed the price of oil a little bit higher when it was $50 a barrel? I mean, isn't the progressive argument actually that what we would ideally like to see is a pretty hefty government tax on oil and on gas, as you have in Europe, so that the economy gets used to more expensive, I would say more realistically priced oil?
So aren't the Koch brothers doing us a favor, Lee?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. You know, a little bit of speculation is very healthy for the market because it locks in prices and provides stability to the market. But, you know, I fundamentally disagree with that because, you know, I am against fossil fuels. I don't want all these carbon-based fuels dependent on our economy, dependent on them. However, with these surging prices, you're basically killing the recovery. You're not only hurting consumers at the pump, you're hurting small businesses, you're hurting the middle class. And we're talking here about excessive speculation. Dodd-Frank, the law that was passed last year, had specific rules charged to the CFTC, the regulatory body that governs all of this, to rein in excessive speculation.
Sam? Yeah, okay, speaking as someone who's not being paid by anybody, sadly.
We were waiting for your connection.
Exactly. Sorry, I have no disclosure. I have no disclosure. But I agree with Christia that obviously futures markets are important to maintain price stability. But aren't we in an era now where the amount of speculation by players who are actually trying to maintain price stability is far outweighed by profiteers like the Koch brothers or any number of speculators?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen a dramatic shift. You know, 20 years ago, these speculators that had, you know, no interest in the actual delivery of oil, they were a small part of the market. Now they're the vast majority. And we're seeing this massive new problem, again, because of very politically savvy companies like Koch Industries and others. You know, in the year 2000, Koch Industries teamed up with Enron and wrote the notorious Enron loophole that deregulated a lot of these energy derivatives. They used their front groups and their Tea Party allies to try to kill Dodd-Frank last year, and even today, their Tea Party Republicans that they helped elect, the Koch brothers, they've voted to cut the CFTC's funding by 2/3, and that's the regulatory body that's in charge.
How do you argue that they're not interested in the delivery of oil? They're an oil refiner.
We're going to have to leave it there for
That makes
today,
no sense,
guys.
Lee.
Lee Fang, thanks for, at least we've settled everything for now. Thanks to Lee Fang. Thanks also to our mega panel. Tim Carney, who I will note is very suspicious of the idea that Lee Fang could be living without fossil fuels. I'll put that on the record. Sam Cedar, the undisclosed. Thanks as always for your lively insights and engagement. If there are already rules to clamp down on rampant oil speculation, why aren't we enforcing them? David Goodfriend has some ideas on that. He'll get the floor in just a little bit. But first, adding insult to injury, new storms on the move right now through the tornado-devastated Midwest. We'll take you there for the latest next.